to my kitchen, and today we're going to make some beef with Chinese broccoli, or Gai Lan as we say. And I have some baby Gai Lan here that I will chop up. When you're cutting or when you're looking for Gai Lan, try to look for some smaller stems, and it's okay if they're a little bit bigger because we can just slice them up. But the beauty of the baby Gai Lan is that the stems are actually thinner and more tender. And what you want to do is just cut off that dried edge right there. So let me grab these other ones. Again, sometimes these end pieces will be a little bit dry, so we do want to cut those off. Okay, just that comes off to the side. And for the rest of this, now say you have a larger stalk. Okay, we can break off these yummy tender leaves, and then we're left with these stalks. You can, if they're smaller, you can just slice them just like this. I like to slice them on the diagonal into these beautiful thin pieces. If they are the really big ones, what you can do is, let's pretend this was much bigger than this, you can just peel it just like that with a peeler or with a sharp knife. Peel off some of that tough skin and then slice it, okay? So that's what I like to do with the hard stems here. And with the tender leaves, what we can do then is just slice them. All right, so I am separating these. Okay, so now with these, they're a little bit unruly, but that's okay. All right, and cut them into segments. I do on the stem end maybe about half an inch or so. And then on these leaves, some of them get pretty wide, so sometimes I will cut them just like that and then slice them, okay? So that's how we prepare the Gai Lan, or the broccoli, all right? And for the beef today, I'm using flank steak. Now, this is about a 2-pound piece of flank steak, and you're not going to need that much for this recipe. But what I like to do is buy it in bulk and then cut it up and freeze it. Okay, so that's what we've done here. So I have a sharp, it's actually a boning knife that I'm going to use here, and just cut that off. Back in the day when my family was in the restaurant business, we'd sell a lot of stir-fried beef dishes, and we'd bring in the flank steak in cases. And so once we had all this trim, we actually would braise it, and it was just a very delicious braise. Now, I'm not going to use this whole thing, so for this stir fry, I probably only need about a third of it. So what I want to do is, you can see on flank steak very clearly where all the grain, the direction that the grain runs in the meat, okay? So the first thing we want to do is divide this into strips with the grain. That's what I'm doing here, okay? I'm only going to use one of these. I'm going to set the others aside, okay? And then from here, what I'm going to do is just slice this very thinly across the grain, so against the grain, and that will make sure that the beef slices are tender, okay? And I'm going to cut these pretty thinly, and I'm just using this boning knife, but you can use a chef's knife or cleaver, or whatever your best, sharpest knife is, okay? Now we want to cut this thinner so that it's more tender. And this goes into this bowl. And I'm going to do a quick marinade, and that really just adds flavor, but it also, I've got soy sauce here, a little bit of soy sauce. We mix that in, okay, so that begins your first layer of flavor, okay? And then I'm going to add a little bit of cornstarch, and the reason for that is it helps to give it this tiny bit of coating, and when we stir fry it, it will help to keep it tender, and that tiny little bit of cornstarch will help to thicken the sauce. All right, next we're going to stir fry this together. All right, time to cook. We need to preheat the wok, and I've got it on high, and you can tell when the wok is preheated by the little wisps of smoke that will kind of come off the surface of the wok. And I'm going to drizzle some oil in. This is just a neutral tasting canola oil. So you don't have to use canola, but as long as it's neutral tasting, that's the important thing. And it's about a tablespoon of oil. And what I'm going to do is par cook the beef. So once you add the beef, you want to spread it out into the wok so that we can sear the side. So it's about 10 seconds or so, depending on how hot your wok is. And then I'm going to start flipping it. All right. Okay, now I'm going to actively stir fry here. And that is plenty. I'm going to turn the heat off. Turn the heat off, scoop it out. Now you can do this with any kind of protein, so if it's chicken, if it's pork, if it's something else, that's fine. All right, and now I'm going to transition to cooking the broccoli, or Gai Lan. So back up to high heat. I have some residual oil in there, but I'm just going to add probably a teaspoon or so of oil. And because there's residual heat, I don't have to wait as long for the wok to heat up. So I've added the broccoli. And just stir that around. Okay, so this is the active bit of stir frying. You could throw some garlic in here if you wanted, some green onions. In fact, I have some chopped green onions here. I'll throw that in, just for a little bit of aromatics. And stir that around. Now, if you need to control the heat and your stove doesn't react quickly, what you can do is just move, if you have make sure you have your heat pad, but you can move the wok off the heat, or I'm just lowering the heat for a moment, and I'm adding some black bean garlic sauce. It's about a good tablespoon. Some more soy sauce. There's about a tablespoon of that. And turn the heat back up. Just long enough to nicely integrate all of the ingredients, okay? That's pretty much it. That was maybe 30 seconds. I've turned off the heat, and I'm adding just a drizzle of sesame oil and just a smidge, probably about 1/8 of a teaspoon of white pepper powder. Okay, give it one last stir and dish that out. Now that was pretty straightforward. Okay. All right, dinner is served.